To many, superheroes are unforgettable, regardless of whether they're saving the day in the universes of Marvel, DC, or beyond, or their adventures are captured on the printed page or the big screen. These larger-than-life pantheons of virtue stick with us through our entire lives. Moments like the Avengers assembling on screen for the very first time, Spider-Man's iconic swing into action, or Superman arriving to save the day, these moments will live on in the hearts of comic fans forever. And with all of this in mind, I want to ask you a question. What would happen if a superhero was forgotten? Not just by the readers or the viewers, but by the entire world in which they saved time and time again. What if their fellow heroes, alongside whom they had shed blood, sweat and tears, now had no memory of their entire existence? And what if even they themselves, having risked their life to protect the world, suddenly woke up with no memory of their heroics or their sacrifices? This is precisely what happened to the Sentry. The Sentry, created by Jenkins, Jae Lee and Rick Veitch, is one of the most fascinating Marvel heroes that the company has ever created. A Superman-like figure who was supposedly the original flagship hero in the company's universe before he found himself not only having lost his memory, but the entire world forgot he even existed. Originally told in a 5-issue series published throughout 2000, the Sentry's story is unlike anything Marvel had ever done before it, with the intrigue and myth of this mysteriously lost hero even extending outside of the company's universe, with rumours circulating that he was actually inspired by a forgotten hero created by Stan Lee in the early 1960s. And so in this video, I want to break down the history of just how the Sentry came to be, the original ideas behind this character and his first 5-issue story, and the ingenious hoax that was concocted by the character's creators, Marvel Comics, Stan Lee and Wizard Magazine, to make the comic book world believe that they had suddenly rediscovered a forgotten hero. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. The origin of the Sentry can be traced back to 1998, when Marvel Comics launched their Marvel Knights imprint, a new line of comic books set outside of the company's main universe, outsourced to Event Comics, an independent publisher ran by Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada. Having only emerged from Chapter 11 bankruptcy earlier that year, Marvel were keen on finding new ways to reinvigorate their sales, and as such, they handed over 4 of their long-running titles, Daredevil, Black Panther, The Punisher and Inhumans, to Quesada and Palmiotti, instructing them to both experiment with new story ideas and find unique voices to bring these characters' stories to life. Over the next few years, the Marvel Knights series would become a huge success, giving the spotlight to many creators who would go on to become major names in the industry over the next decade, such as Brian Michael Bendis and Garth Ennis, whilst also enlisting big names from the entertainment industry, such as Kevin Smith. And with the success of these original 4 titles, Marvel pushed for even more books to be released under the Knights banner, encouraging its writing staff to pitch ideas for different characters in their own unique Marvel Knights stories. One of the writers who would pitch an idea was Jenkins, who was then working on the Inhumans. Jenkins would meet with Joe Quesada and explain an idea for a character he had devised years earlier. Alongside artist Rick Veitch, Jenkins introduced the Sentry, a Superman-esque figure who was characterized as a lost superhero from the Silver Age of comics, now struggling to overcome his trauma and addiction years after he hung up his cape. Not only did Jenkins and Veitch pitch introducing the Sentry with an origin story written and drawn in the style of the Lee and Kirby comics from the 60s, but they even proposed making the Sentry story canon, revealing that he was actually one of the original superheroes of the Marvel Universe, who had long been forgotten for unknown reasons. Seeing the obvious potential in this concept, Quesada greenlit a 5-issue series that would be released throughout 2000, with Jenkins teaming up with Jae Lee, who was the artist on Inhumans at this time, to bring this ambitious story to life. However, while the first ever Sentry comic book was being created, Quesada and those at Marvel were busy creating something even more elaborate and ambitious, a secret story that would make the Sentry the talk of the entire comic book industry. You see, to fully sell the notion that the Sentry was a forgotten superhero, Quesada and Jenkins devised a publicity stunt to help build intrigue in their new upcoming series, introducing the Sentry as a lost creation of Stan Lee from the early 1960s, who was recently unearthed and brought back into publication. The first part of this hoax began in Daredevil issue 9 from July 1999, where Quesada, who was the artist on the series, included a brief tribute to Artie Rosen, an obscure comic book artist who briefly worked for Marvel in the early 1960s, noting in the book's letters page that he had recently fallen ill and wished him well. This seemingly offhand remark would then be followed up by an article published in Wizard magazine in July of 2000, where it was announced that Rosen had sadly passed away. The article included a quote from Stan Lee, who was believed to have been a friend and collaborator of Rosen during his time at Marvel. In a later issue of Wizard published in May of that year, the magazine would then claim to have heard rumours that Rosen had been working with Lee on new ideas for superheroes prior to the creation of the Fantastic Four. This article would include a quote from Marvel's then editor-in-chief Bob Harras, who stated, "If it were true, and I'm in no way saying it is, it would have a tremendous impact on Marvel's history and on the history of comics in general." Specifically, the article claimed that sketches had leaked online of a character Rosen and Lee had been developing early on in the 1960s, a powerful godlike hero known as the Sentry. Lee would even be asked about the legitimacy of these sketches, stating that, "I'm not at liberty to say anything about it right now, but wouldn't it be great if there has been something before the Fantastic Four? I'd be more than happy to look at the sketches to try and help Marvel out in any way I could. Like I said, I'm not sure what it is they found, but if it really is something I created way back when, I'd like to at least take a look at it." This revelation sent the comic book industry into a tailspin, desperate to learn more about this newly discovered hero. The following month, Wizard would report that Artie's widow had found a box full of artwork and had sent it over to Marvel, alleging that writer Paul Jenkins had actually inquired about reviving the Sentry character. Now, this coincided with Marvel's announcement of Jenkins and Lee's new Marvel Knights miniseries, hyping the Sentry's arrival as the long-awaited introduction to the character that slipped through the cracks of Marvel's history. There was just one problem though. As you may have guessed, Artie Rosen didn't actually exist, and instead was a character created by Jenkins and Quesada to help build the mystique of their new forgotten hero. Not only was his name a combination of two classic Marvel letterers, Artie Simek and Sam Rosen, but it was later revealed that the sketches that Rosen allegedly drew were actually drawn by John Romita Sr., an artist synonymous with 60s Marvel comics. The extent of this hoax is genuinely impressive. As to properly sell the story of this long-lost hero, Jenkins and Quesada not only enlisted Marvel's editor-in-chief, but also the likes of Stan Lee, John Romita, and even Wizard magazine to go along with this elaborate ruse, with each playing their part to perfection and masterfully building the Sentry's mystique over the course of an entire year. And by the time this year concluded and issue 1 of the Sentry hit shelves in September of 2000, it became clear that this series was to be unlike anything fans had experienced before. Issue 1 of the Sentry opens with a flash of lightning, startling and waking up Robert Reynolds. As soon as he wakes up, Bob immediately realises that something is wrong, walking downstairs and grabbing a book that holds a mysterious formula inside of it, as we learn that this seemingly ordinary man was once an incredible superhero known as the Sentry, and it was this formula that gave him his larger-than-life abilities. Bob takes the serum, as we see through flashbacks that not only was he a superhero, but he frequently stood shoulder to shoulder with the likes of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. With his powers now restored, Bob and his dog walk into the garden, where his dog suddenly manifests into visions of his arch enemy, the Void. Bob quickly realises why he suddenly remembered a life he'd long forgotten. The Void is back, and the Sentry needs the help of the world's greatest superheroes to stop it from destroying the entire world. Bob first travels to the Baxter building, where he's confronted by Reed Richards. Reed, shocked at the Sentry's ability to bypass his security systems, doesn't actually recognise the Sentry, despite Bob telling him that they were once good friends, and he needs the Fantastic Four's help for what is about to come. Reed continues to look confused, and as Bob departs, he tells Mr. Fantastic that the key to remembering him is the unicorn. Unsure as to what this means, Reed returns to the Baxter building, discovering a golden unicorn ornament sitting in their living room, causing him to remember Bob's wedding, where he was the best man. Reed also finds a videotape and upon playing it, finds a pre-record message from his younger self, alerting him that if this video is being played, it means that Robert Reynolds has resurfaced and that the void has also returned. Before the video can explain what this means though, the tape begins to glitch and the VCR suddenly explodes. Meanwhile, we see the Sentry track down the Hulk, who not only recognizes Bob immediately, but heartbreakingly asks why he walked away many years earlier. Bob remarks that the void is back, and he's going to need the Hulk's help to fight him. Hulk actually appears scared, but he tells Bob that he will be brave and stand alongside his friend. From here, we see the Sentry attempt to meet with the likes of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and even Charles Xavier, all of whom have no memory of the Sentry or the battles they fought together. Attempting to make them remember, Bob tells Peter to search for missing issues of various newspapers in New York, with Peter later discovering that many publications are misnumbered, realizing that the missing issues all featured stories written by Robert Reynolds. Likewise, Bob is eventually able to make Tony remember, who recalls to Bob a meeting that he and the other heroes had after a mysterious incident where the decision was made to erase the world's memory of the Sentry. Shocked at the revelation that his former friends were responsible for his memory loss, Bob heads to the Watchtower, the Sentry's base of operations, attempting to access files from its onboard computer. When he does though, the computer actually prevents him, telling him that certain files have been logged by Reed Richards. This causes Bob to believe that Reed was the one who orchestrated the conspiracy to erase his memories, and his emotions manifest in thunderstorms across the night sky, causing the void to make his grand return and begin to wreak havoc across New York City. Realizing this, Bob races to the Statue of Liberty, preparing to fight the void once again, where he's suddenly met by all of the other heroes he's encountered throughout the book, with all of their memories restored and willing to fight alongside the Sentry, just like they did time and time again years earlier. It's here that Bob actually confronts Reed Richards, asking him why he would betray him, as we learn that after the Sentry faked his death, Reed revealed to the world that Bob was a traitor, secretly working for the criminal underworld while masquerading as a superhero. As the other heroes struggle to hold off the void, Doctor Strange shows both Reed and Bob a memory that neither one of them had yet uncovered, revealing that after Bob learned that he and the void were actually the same person, he instructed his fellow heroes to not only kill the Sentry, but to completely destroy his legacy, making it impossible for either the Sentry or the void to ever return. Now realizing the only way to defeat the void once and for all, Bob asks Reed to use the machine he built to erase the world's memory of the Sentry once again, as the void only can exist if Bob Reynolds remembers it. The pair race back to the Watchtower, activating the transmitter and aiming it at Robert Reynolds. In their final moments together, Bob apologizes to Reed for coming back, as Reed tells his former best friend that he was the best man he ever knew, and the tragedy wasn't actually his return, but the fact that the world had to lose its greatest hero once again. The two say goodbye and the comic fades to black. We return to see the streets of New York City in ruins, as a news bulletin explains that the damage caused tonight was the result of a temporal anomaly carried within a hurricane. Listening to this bulletin in their car is Bob and Linda Reynolds, who park outside of a fast food restaurant. Bob enters and is met by a seemingly familiar face, Billy Turner, his former sidekick. Billy, with no recollection of the Sentry, asks him what his order will be, causing Bob to smile, with the fate of the Sentry and the entire world being left open-ended. From here, the Sentry wouldn't reappear until 2005, in the pages of Brian Michael Bendis and Steve McNiven's new Avengers series. Here, the Sentry is a mysterious inmate of the Raft, having confessed to killing his wife. Throughout this story, we discover that his wife is actually alive, with the Avengers even bringing in Paul Jenkins to reveal that the Sentry existed as a comic book character in the Marvel Universe. It's later revealed that Bob's memories were being manipulated by the villain villain mastermind, with the hero later joining the Avengers and becoming a member of the team for many years. Since then, the Sentry has had several standalone titles, with the 2008 series Age of the Sentry filling in much of the hero's early years and adventures prior to his memory loss, and the recent Man of Two Worlds miniseries written by Jeff Lemire has continued to expand on the mythos of Marvel's long-lost superhero. In the meantime though, the truth behind this elaborate ruse would be eventually revealed. While Marvel were keen to keep the hoax going, even publishing a 6-part interview with Joe Quesada and Stan Lee alongside the original Marvel Knights miniseries, Wizard magazine would ultimately reveal the truth in May of 2001, with both Jenkins and Quesada remarking that they hoped the story of the Sentry's unearthing helped fans truly immerse themselves in the tragic story of this new character. And while I can't speak for anyone else, I genuinely love this original Marvel Knights miniseries. To me, the Sentry is such a fascinating and unique character. The concept of a forgotten superhero from the genesis of the Marvel universe, rediscovered decades after his original heroics, is so genius and unlike anything Marvel had done previously. And through Paul Jenkins' brilliant writing and Jae Lee's masterful artwork, you truly feel for Bob Reynolds as he journeys across the Marvel universe to recover the memories that he had lost. My personal introduction to the Sentry came in New Avengers, but having gone back and read the original series, I was absolutely stunned. It's a book I can't recommend enough, both for its brilliant story within the pages and the ingenious one behind the scenes. It's both a brilliant comic book story and a touching reminder of what superheroes mean to the world, and the sacrifices they make to ensure that we all get to live to fight another day. The Sentry is a book about loss, grief, trauma, and finding yourself after being lost for many years. But more importantly, I think it's a celebration of all things heroic and larger than life, told through the perspective of the forgotten Marvel superhero. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on the video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you enjoyed this and you want some more, there should be some other videos on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so at patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. And if you want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter just at OwenLikesComics. That's all for this video though. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.